This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1889, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Movie review.
Movie review.
I don't
I'm
know
so worried about Quantumania.
You've made a big mistake. I'm an Avenger.
You're an Avenger. Have I killed you before?
What?
You're not the one with the hammer.
It's Thor. We get confused a lot. Similar body types. Who are you?
Just a man who's lost a lot of time, like you. But we can help each other with that.
Welcome to the show. This is Shane Kelly.
And I'm Adam Murdo.
I'm Ian Levinstein.
And I'm Chris Eberly. Is that Egghead, Shane?
Excellent, extraordinary, exceptional.
You know, it's extra funny that you threw that out there with us, Shane, because I just watched Rocky tonight and got to see, the Penguin
Burgess Meredith.
Burgess Meredith. So
What a great film.
I'm really trying not to get many of these McFarlane toys because I just don't care. However, I really love the villains that they're coming out with the 66 Batman verse. Mm-hmm. And King Tut and Two-Face are up next.
Ooh.
Which I can't wait.
Now, isn't Egghead a TV exclusive villain? Is that correct?
Yeah.
For the show, played by Vincent Price, of course.
Right, okay.
I think they did bring him into the 66 comic that was out there.
Uh-huh.
I can't quite remember, but...
And there was an issue of the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon tie-in comic that it was an Easter special, of course.
Okay.
Nicely done.
Excellent.
And I think eventually he may have showed up he showed up apparently in Batman Shadow of the Bat in August 1992.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay.
That I don't remember.
Yep. Deep cut. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wikipedia, for that one, because I would not have guessed that otherwise.
And I read those issues and I don't remember it.
Yep. Well, welcome one and all to the show as we get our review out for Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. And before we get there, a reminder that you, the listeners, over at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak, help us keep these reviews a-coming, as well as episodes of the show a-coming. And we thank you so much for all that continued support to the show that you bring. And we would not be able to do it without you. If you are unable in any way to donate to the show, know that just spreading the word about the show is just as important. Mm-hmm. And it's letting people know about it in any way, shape, or form, and having them join in on the listenership is just as peachy. So we thank you so much once again at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. And also my own personal Patreon at patreon.com/comictiming. If you want to throw a couple bucks my way, by all means. And Mr. Murdo, for the what may be the final time, let's remind folks about the best of.
Oh, gladly, Ian. Folks, this is your likely last chance to participate in the Comic Geek Speak Best of 2022 Awards. We need your nominations for your favorite comics, creators, storylines, and so forth. So go to the comicforums.vanillacommunity.com or to our super group on Facebook. Look up those 16 categories in which we're seeking nominations. Make up a ballot and email it to bestof, BESTOF, at comicgeekspeak.com by 11:59 p.m. Sunday, March 5th Eastern Standard Time. And I will count up those nominations and we'll put together a cracking good nominations show for you sometime in the near future. But we need your input first.
Mm-hmm.
So get out there, nominate early, nominate once, but just nominate, please.
I wondered where you were going with often.
Murd, I really dug the whole CGS I want you gesture you did there. That was well done, sir.
Exactly. Yes. So yes,
James Montgomery Murd. That's me.
Ah,
I have been seeing some people posting on the super group that they've been sending in their nominations, and we really do appreciate that. And we'll give a reminder post out there as well as we get closer to the deadline of deadlines. So wonderful job. All right. Now that all my fuddling and futzing around getting my microphone to work, even though it's been one of those days, is all over with, and that's why I jumped over Murd in the introduction there, as I myself have frazzled, but now I'm simmering down and chilling as we get closer to Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania discussion here. Boy, oh boy, it has been an interesting time in the world of Marvel, as this movie is the first movie to get a below 50% on Rotten Tomatoes.
really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that bad. Wow.
48% on Rotten Tomatoes as of the day of this recording.
So what did Eternals get then?
I'm looking that up right now.
Wait, is that critics or fans doing that? I'm sorry.
Critics? Yeah,
Okay.
critics, because audience score is 83% on this movie.
Okay.
And continues to be. And there's been more and more disparity between audience score and critic score of late. Eternals was slightly worse. Eternals was 47%.
Okay.
With a 77% audience score for that as well.
Well, what I would say to that, Ian, is that I just think I'm speaking broadly, but traditionally, film critics are not big fans of comic book related films.
Yes,
and with some notable exceptions. So, and let's face it, I mean, there's been so many Marvel films. I'm sure there are film critics who are living for the moment when superhero movies eventually just kind of have their moment and fade out.
Their patience with the genre is growing thinner by the day.
Yeah. And mind you, I mean, the fact that Angela Bassett got a nomination for Wakanda Forever, at the Academy Awards. That's only like maybe the third time that's happened.
Something like that.
In memory, because I mean I know Heath Ledger won, possibly
Best supporting actor, yeah,
and then Joaquin Phoenix won for Joker. So that's the few times that's actually showed up on critics. But frankly, we know this as well as anybody. Like we love or hate movies depending on how our own personal likes go, not on how the critics swing.
Oh yeah, I've never gone to see a movie because a critic said it was good or not.
Yeah, there have been a couple that have actually swung me further into it rather than waiting for it to be streaming. Cocaine Bear, I'm looking at you because I most definitely went to the theaters when I saw that the reviews were coming in positive enough on that one. I'm like, all right, you're crazy, and I'm having a fun night on my own. I'm going to make this magic happen, and I did, and it was goddamn delightful.
I kind of stopped listening or watching or reading any kind of critics after Siskel and Ebert, and the only reason I stuck with them for so long was because it was an enjoying novelty of it that I grew up with. It wasn't because I valued their opinion. I mean, it was fine, but I didn't ever go see anything because or not because of them. But once they stopped, I really stopped caring.
No, they're perfectly fair enough. And I mean, here we are, though. What does matter the most is what we are, the reviewers of this particular movie. About this Phase 5 beginning here, as this is a tentpole film. At least it was positioned to be as such. Yeah, originally supposed to be coming out in February. It was originally supposed to be coming out in, I believe, July, and then they repositioned it to be February. So was this originally going to be the start of Phase 5 or not? That's a very interesting question.
Well, what's the next one? Guardians?
Guardians is next. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see that one being the tentpole of the next Phase or the next build up. So it would make kind of sense to me to put Ant-Man and Wasp in this position.
Yeah. What's after Guardians? Do we know? I'm trying to think of what's actually next on the slate. I feel like there might be. Well, I mean, I know that Edge of Spider-Verse is also coming out this year, but that's not part of the Phase. Let's see, Phase 5 Marvel.
Did I see that The Marvels was going to be coming out in November?
I think that's the one.
Maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, yes. Looking at it now, the Marvels comes out in November 10th, and then after that is Captain America: New World Order in May of next year, followed by Thunderbolts, followed by Blade.
So, okay, after Guardians, is it Loki on TV?
Yes, I believe
And
so.
obviously Loki's going to have to play a major role in what they're developing.
Yeah, I
Very
would
much.
think.
The second teaser scene. So
Yeah.
I will put the spoiler. I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this episode, you know that we're going to spoil the heck out of the movie. But I will put the spoiler notice here, as it's just going to get more spoilery than what was just brought to you. You know that you've listened to us. We begin here. Murd, I'm actually going to start it off with you. And I mean, mostly because, I mean, you know, you're the timey-wimey of us all. And I know
What's Doc Who? What the hell?
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Point enough.
Credit where credit is due. Just
Exactly. And the serve goes to Shane. Well played. But I also know that you're a huge fan of Kang. And for this movie to have Kang as the, you know, at least place him as the central villain of what's going to be the upcoming phases of Marvel, I'm curious what your initial impressions were of this movie.
Well, right out of the starting gate, it instantly became my favorite Ant-Man movie thus far.
Okay.
But then again, the bar was set low because Ant-Man is probably my least favorite subgenre or sub-franchise. There's probably something else I could think of if I thought long and hard enough that I liked less. But yeah, I really never really vibed much with the first couple Ant-Man movies. Those people out there who really do like those Ant-Man movies that are kind of picaresque heist movie flair, I can understand how they might be a little disappointed in this one because it's basically taking the whole Ant-Man family on kind of a sharp left turn into Guardians of the Galaxy territory.
Right.
But yeah, it's my reaction to this is fairly similar to my reaction to the Aquaman movie of several years ago. It's it's a fun romp, it's a good ride. Lots of the visuals, of course, were stunning as one would expect. It's visually engaging, lots of imaginative designs. Not all that much to offer on the level of plot or characterization, with one or two exceptions. And I mean, there's things I liked about it, and I was glad that Cassie Lang finally got something akin to a personality a few movies in. I thought MODOK was kind of a pleasant surprise, honestly. I had no idea they were going in that direction with the character, but it worked for me for a couple of reasons, which we'll get into. And we got some good play from Hank and Janet, and Scott's comedic arc continues. And I think we're all agreed, though, that, Ian, you posted this in your initial thoughts on Facebook a while ago, that Hope really got the short end of the character development stick.
Absolutely.
3 movies in, and she's still basically a cipher. I'm convinced that nobody at Marvel Studios has any interest in writing for this character, and that's kind of a shame.
Part of me was almost surprised she was even in this. Like, I thought that they were going to find a way to write her out and just have, Janet be the Wasp of this particular venture out, but not the way they went.
Yep, there's a dozen different ways they could have sidelined her if they'd cared to, but instead they just had her hang around and barely say or do anything. But anyway, the star of the show here, I mean, the story itself was okay. I mean, there were certain shortcomings. The plot became extremely formulaic at spots where you could almost count down inwardly to certain beats occurring. It was a little predictable here and there. But the introduction of Kang, which I think we can all agree is what is most significant about this movie. It's interesting to me as the MCU rolls along here how the planning out of the phases comes to resemble the plotting of a year's worth of Marvel comics. You can recognize parallels between the intent of these film releases and the intent of certain comic book releases. This was just kind of a self-contained Ant-Man adventure that also serves to introduce a major antagonist for the upcoming summer crossover, if you will. And introduced in high style was Kang. I mean, Jonathan Majors playing this character was everything that we'd hoped it would be after watching him chew up a bunch of scenery in the season finale of the Loki season 1 as he who survives, which is the ultimate end of lifespan version of Kang. But yeah, Jonathan Majors played a great conqueror here. You could tell he was just jaded by having seen endless permutations of time and having come up against other versions of himself throughout the endless recursive loop that is his existence. And he played a great maniacal villain when it was appropriate. He played a great contained internal character when need be. He's got great range as Majors, and he's going to need all of it because he's playing potentially infinite different versions of the same person in the course of upcoming films. So that mid-credit scene really, it blew my mind.
I agree. Yeah,
as a Kang fan, that was what I wanted to see.
Yes.
So yeah, that element was great. Other stuff not so great. And overall, I came away from it feeling that I had been entertained, and that the stage had been set for other potentially fun stuff to come from the Marvel Studios. But yeah, it's kind of no better than a B- overall for me, I'd say.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Eberly.
Love you, Pooh. In general, I echo Murd's sentiments. I enjoyed the film. I was entertained. I really enjoy Paul Rudd in the role. Like I think he's such a gifted, versatile actor.
Oh yeah.
That every time he's there doing his Ant-Man Scott Lang thing, I'm enjoying myself.
And he ages in reverse.
Yeah, yeah, he sure seems to.
That said, I'm tired of how poorly they're using the Wasp. Evangeline Lilly is a great actress.
Yeah.
And the Wasp is a very strong character and has a very strong history in the comics, especially as an Avenger. And they really haven't done that in the movies, but I really was disappointed in how little she was really used in the film. Since I was a kid, I love Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas. I'm happy to see them in anything.
Oh, sure.
So I was really pleased with that. But like Murd, the best part of the movie is Kang. I mean, take Kang out of it. This is not a particularly great film in any way, shape, or form. It's just kind of There's some great comedy. There's I agree. Like, it was great to see Cassie kind of come into her own as a character. I enjoyed the chemistry she had with her father. I thought that was well done. But it's Kang, and I agree. Majors, I think, is superb in the role.
Yes.
He really has the range to play, as Murd noted, the many different facets of the character throughout time. I found him he had that balance of like the weary resignation of Kang and also the extreme ruthlessness of the character. I love how they adapted his mask, and I thought that worked really well.
Subtle vertical scars,
right? Because Marvel is obviously has an aversion to any of their characters actually ever wearing their actual comic masks in any of these films or appearing in the posters. But I like kind of like the compromise they did, where he clearly had like a battle helmet, and they just had like this energy come down. But I thought it looked really good.
Yeah.
And I think that's so pivotal. I'm sorry, Shane. Go ahead.
No, it did. I agree.
Yeah, it's. I think that Kang's look is important, and I'm glad they didn't really compromise on it. And it was an Ant-Man movie. So like all the other Ant-Man movies, I thought it was really fun. I enjoyed it. Look at that, awesome. That is Kang, man. Wow.
Yes, it is.
But I was really more engaged with what they're setting up, and I think they're doing a really good job of starting to establish for like the general audience who's not familiar with the character how powerful Kang is, how important he is, and how decisive he can be as a character in these ongoing plot lines. So I'm really excited for that. As one little side note, one last thing I'll say, and this is pure fanboyish. When they have the denizens of, I have to call it the Microverse. Okay,
that's fine.
Rebel, just make it the Micronauts. Yeah, like you made all these kind of dull. I mean, the whole thing was funny, but kind of like these dull, generic characters. Like, you already have characters who look great. Marvel owns the rights to several of them.
Yeah,
just put them in there. So I didn't understand that, but that's just me being a geek. But overall, serviceable, fun, and most importantly, laying the groundwork for what I hope is a very exciting arc for this classic villain.
Shane.
I agree with almost everything that's been said by Adam and Chris. It wasn't a particularly fantastic film. I don't know that it was extremely well written for the Ant-Man side of the world. It was entertaining. I laughed. I enjoyed it. But I too was really looking forward to what they were going to do with Kang and lay the groundwork for everything yet to come. And just how menacing he would be at this point, and he is quite menacing at this point in not only the iteration we followed mostly through the movie, but what looks to come from the bazillion of Kangs that we saw in the credits scene.
Yep.
I was going to ask, and I kind of had it answered by what Adam and Chris have already said, but all of those microverse characters that were in there, were none of them, they were all kind of just created for the movie, or were some of them in Marvel Comics before?
I can't say I recognized any of them.
Okay.
Almost not 100%, but almost positive they've all been for the movie.
Okay. And that's kind of what I figured. Not that I would know, because I don't know the microverse all that well, but I was expecting some kind of Micronauts to show up somewhere in there.
I feel like Broccoli Guy might actually be a Marvel character.
Okay.
And I could be entirely wrong about that, just because I have this image of a Broccoli Guy in a comic that I was reading being there. I just don't know whether or not it was a Marvel comic or whether it was just some throwaway. But you never know.
Kind of reminded me of the Debari, who are the people who
that's a good
came
point,
after
Murd.
Phoenix because their home planet had been destroyed by Dark Phoenix. But they're more asparagus, though.
Yeah, they're called the asparagus people, generically, yes.
All right. Well, and good to know, because that's kind of what I felt from it and things I read online. Not that it detracted from the story for me at all. I do think Evangeline Lilly got the short end of the stick on this one. I really wanted to see her do more. I liked what they did with her in the second film, and I was hoping to progress her character a little bit more in this one. I did like that Cassie got her time, and that was great, but I wanted to see Evangeline Lilly do a little bit more too.
Plus, also because I think she and Paul Rudd have really good chemistry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So why not further explore that?
Yeah. I mean, it was great, like you said, Chris, to see Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas do everything that they did. That was fun. And I'm glad that things progressed so that Kang did become more and more menacing as much as he did. I do agree with Adam that some things became extremely predictable. So that was kind of boring in a way. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was very formulaic in that fashion. But I'm glad we got a good ground level for Kang to see what happens from here. I know that there's always multiple iterations of Kang out there, and we see him in many different ways at times. But I do want to ask, has there ever been that many that we saw in the first credit scene?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Council of Kangs, baby.
Okay.
Council of Kangs.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what comes from this to Loki and beyond to lead to the next pivotal point in the Marvel movies.
Well, when I went with Ryan and I went to see, and when we were walking, I was like, I said, if they really want to go full bore Marvel history to the wall with this whole thing, this is eventually when you bring in Doctor Doom.
Oh yeah,
because according to Marvel myth, I don't know if they've ever confirmed one or the other, Kang is a descendant potentially of Doom.
Yes. Well, there's also been talk of him perhaps being a descendant of Nathaniel Richards, and I know that it's been an either or multiple times in the history of.
I mean, either way, there's so many interesting things they could do with that lineage. But yeah, Shane, Kang is too many Kangs. It's funny to say there are Kangs everywhere.
Okay,
at the time stream.
And now, bringing up an image.
Okay, all right, excellent.
Yep.
So now the costume that he's in here that was kind of modeled in the movie, I'm hoping that that's not the last time we see this, because that's the Kang that's Kang. I think we all know.
Yeah. That's I love the way they adapted the costume. I thought it looked great. Look at that, it looks awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it sure did.
I mean, even the color scheme,
they did a wonderful job with it.
Yeah.
But I agree with Adam. Kind of a B minus. It was okay in that way. It's hard. I said this before the show. It's hard to gauge all these Marvel movies now. I mean, you're coming upon 30-ish of them. It's really hard to say that this one's going to top some of the ones that we all probably think of as our top 5. It's going to be really hard pressed in the future to kind of break that part of our lists.
And I think this film also, because it was, I don't want to say saddle, that's not the right term, but it was mandated that it start this new clear big plot line they're developing. So when you do that, inevitably the characters that are part of that franchise are probably going to suffer a little bit because they have to focus on dealing with this happening.
And just like any crossover that we read, if you're shoehorning in tie-in issues, it may not come through very well because you're pushing it in where it's not really supposed to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, I I saw this movie a day before release. I was going to be out of town, and Martha was going to be out of town, so I did my best to try to secure a advanced screening and found one on gophobo.com, which is a great place to go if you're looking to try and score movie screenings near you. That's usually the first website that you're going to check to see whether or not you're going to find one. And I found one for Lincoln Center. Got on the waiting list. Got past the waiting list, wound up getting 2 vouchers, and then we went to see it at Lincoln Center on the IMAX, the only real IMAX screen in all of New York City.
Oh wow!
The rest
Nice.
of them are quote unquote IMAXs. You know, the ones that are just huge screens that are branded as IMAX, but they're not like the circular encompassing screens that IMAX screens are supposed to be. It was regular IMAX. It wasn't IMAX 3D. Thank God, because I hate 3D conversions. If it's going to be a 3D movie, like if it's Avatar, I saw in 3D because it was supposed to be 3D. 3D conversions, nah.
Yeah, I'm not big on 3D conversions at all.
Agreed. And it was a mostly, you know, obviously because of where I saw it, it was a mostly nerd crowd. You know, it was pre-opening. Everybody knew what they were getting into. Actually ran into a longtime friend of mine who I've interviewed a couple times. Artist Javier Cruz Winnick was there. Just happened to be waiting in line as I was getting my candy. He was directly in front of me, and we had a quick hello, and sat ourselves down. But I feel like I enjoyed the movie for the most part, but I've thought long and hard about it since then. I've only seen it once so far. I will see it a second time before it's out of theaters. I feel like this is the first movie that really feels the weight of the 30 movies. That this is the first movie that is more for us nerds than it is for the general public. Especially in setting, because as Murd said before this, all the Ant-Man movies followed a general premise of, a heist movie in one way or the other. They were more grounded. They all took place on Earth. But then they pulled a Thor, and they decided to change the entire premise of everything that we've gotten before, and brought us to something very different. And I keep calling it the Microverse because it's hard not to. But the Quantum Realm, in and of itself, I mean, I wrote about it, after I saw it on Facebook, that it's very Star Wars. The setup of it is Star Wars. The action is Star Wars. The creatures are Star Wars. Like
the bar,
exactly. The bar, even Bill Murray, like the whole situation. Like, it's hard not to compare it to that, but I can also understand why this was not the movie that some people were looking for, and why it wasn't the movie that critics were looking for, because it's not your typical Ant-Man movie, and it's also a little underbaked. And I mean that lovingly. Like, Kang is easily the best part of the entire film, and frankly, in the end, maybe they should have just made a Kang movie. Like, maybe this should have been this version of Kang trapped in the quantum realm, and we watch him similar to like a Mandalorian or a Book of Boba Fett. He's our main character, and we watch him try to get out, befriend people within the quantum realm in order to try to make it happen. And then eventually we lead to our last scene where either he's defeated or we get, the entire list of Kangs and what have you, and we go from there. And we don't even bother making this an Ant-Man movie, because I feel like Ant-Man was secondary in the end to this entire thing. It was a good setup because the quantum realm existed, and clearly there was story to be told there, but I'm not necessarily sure that it was necessary.
And Michelle Pfeiffer's character really was our POV person for that, to kind of guide us through the quantum realm, to explain what had happened and whatnot. I love the heist part of the Ant-Man movies, but I'm also glad they didn't do that this time, because I feel like that would be getting tired, especially since now everybody kind of would know, just like what they portrayed in the film, everybody would know that Ant-Man helped save the world, and Ant-Man did this, and Ant-Man did that. I wouldn't want to see him just do a heist movie.
Well, no, I agree, because
that's
his
criminal.
character's beyond that now, because of everything that happened since the blip.
Yeah.
Thank you, Spider-Man.
That was funny. That was funny.
By the way, Ian, I think you made a really relevant point when you talk about like the fan service versus the general audience. For example, when I watched this movie, one of the main things I thought about it as going along was like, how is the general audience reacting to MODOK?
Yeah,
because I love that they put a version of MODOK into the movie. I mean, they tied it into the Ant-Man storyline.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I wonder how, like, you know, quote, regular viewers are reacting to this concept.
Well, I've seen people specifically make comments about how, well, I mean, the giant head was ridiculous. I'm like, no, actually, in this way that they set it up, it actually makes perfect sense, because he just simply never shrunk the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
He's all crushed and distorted. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, him being forced into the quantum realm is basically what turned him into this lanky, giant-headed guy with like arms that are this big. You know, like it that made perfect sense, and the effect was a little off-putting, but I also
but MODOK is off-putting. So
for that exact reason, and he's actually like the way he's portrayed in this. It's not the version of MODOK that I'm most familiar with, but at the same time, I feel like it actually worked for me in the movie. Shocking.
It worked for me.
Yeah, I think it worked for me in the movie. Yeah,
it's a couple different ways. As I said, it's kind of a redemption for the Darren Cross character from the first Ant-Man movie, who was always just kind of this very generic, douchey,
villainous,
cartoonishly ruthless corporate douchebag kind of character. And now here he is. He's suffered PTSD of his insertion into the quantum realm. He's obviously suffered a good deal of physical and mental abuse, having been enslaved by Kang as his weapon, and so he's kind of undergoing all kinds of identity crises and whatnot, on top of what was never a very strong personality to begin with.
And he dies as an Avenger in his mind.
Right. And now, having meeting up with Cassie, and whom he kidnapped when she was 6 years old, as we're reminded in the script, it's good closure for her and for him.
Yeah. Yep.
And it ends with her kicking his ass, as he richly deserves, and then telling him, you don't have to still be a dick. It's never too late to stop being a dick.
Yeah.
And that's an important lesson for not only this particular character, but many members of the audience to take home with me.
I also appreciate the constant heart monitor on the front of him as well, like basically saying that this is both containment suit to keep him alive.
Yeah.
And also just, part of the whole aesthetic of it all, and the helmet portion of it, when it's visible, kind of looks a little bit like Stark Tech. Not necessarily fully, but if this Kang has dealt with 800, different universes or whatever, he's probably gotten technology from every single possible Avenger along the way.
Well, and what I thought was a great moment, and I think one of you guys mentioned it before, is when he acknowledged, it was the clip Ian played. Great clip, by the way, Ian. He acknowledged having faced many different permutations of the Avengers. Yeah. And he killed all of them and defeated all of them. So that I like how they're giving the general audience a sense of this villain is extremely powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. And as a force, this is like the new Thanos level villain that is going to force to be reckoned with. And I really enjoyed how in the final battle, they couldn't really beat him. I mean, he was wiping the floor with them basically, and for a lot of and that's really the way it should be when you're dealing with Kang.
Yeah.
So that was again. I know I'm echoing our general sentiment. I thought he was the highlight of the movie. Like I think they really let the character down very well.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yet I was grinning and chuckling with insane glee when the Ant Cavalry came sweeping and dragged him, literally kicking and screaming off stage.
Which again, I listened to a few reviews of Ant-Man and Quantumania, but leading up to this, just to see what people's thoughts on it were and whether or not they, well, quite frankly, got it all. And to at least a review that I was listening to, they're like, well, why are the ants so big? It's like, well, because they didn't shrink.
Yeah.
Plain and simply, like they got to the quantum realm and got there in a very different way and essentially hyper evolved, but they didn't go through the same shrinking experience that Ant-Man and Wasp did in the end. They either partially shrunk or didn't shrink at all, and are now these hyper sentient beings as they were.
And I, to piggyback on that, Ian, I've always appreciated from the beginning, and again, just the acknowledgement of the history that there is a Hank Pym, there is a Janet Van Dyne, and you feel the weight of their experience, of their knowledge.
Yeah.
And again, you have two. I mean, these are Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas are great actors. I mean, I'm sure these are not like the most difficult roles for them, but they have that gravitas and that weight. I even like when they're talking about, well, I was lonely. I had to get together with somebody when I was down here for 30 years or whatever it was. And actually, Murd, I wanted to ask you, when Hank mentioned he was with someone named Linda, is that a name we should know? You remember that?
I remember him mentioning a Linda.
Okay.
It didn't ring a bell for me.
Okay, I didn't for me either, but I want to make sure I hadn't missed anything. So.
That's not his first wife in the comics, is it? I forget what his first wife's name is.
Maria, I think.
Oh, it's Maria? Okay. All right, yeah.
The only thing that puzzles me about what they put Hank through in the second movie and in this one is the first movie, he was so adamant that he couldn't spend any time in the suit changing sizes because it messed him up after all those years. And yet he's just bebopping around the quantum realm like crazy with no side effects that we can see right now. That's the only little plot hole that I see.
Maybe we were supposed to forget that, Shane.
Well, that's what I'm kind of thinking, because I sure did while watching the movie, but afterward I'm like, wait a minute, he shouldn't be down there.
You know what?
He was having head problems.
There's theory that it may possibly be Linda Carter, not Linda Carter Wonder Woman, but Linda Carter Linda Carter. And I'll bring up the character from Marvel lore, but apparently it's one of the first female characters that Marvel had. Let's see, Linda Carter, Marvel.
Not related to Sharon and Peggy Carter, right? No,
Linda Jane Carter. One of the, from here, actually, yeah. Night Nurse. One of the night.
Oh,
nurses.
Night Nurse.
Oh, yeah, one of the night nurses.
One of the night nurses. Okay.
Yeah, because looking here.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That could potentially be who they were talking about if they decide to bring this version in. And she first appeared as Linda Carter, student nurse, back in June 1961. So talk about an ancient character. Look at it. Look at this cover.
Wow. Fantastic. Ian, well done.
Yeah, for one of the first Avengers, it makes sense to reference a character that was one of the first Marvel characters in the process. So
nicely done, Ian. That's, ladies and gentlemen, that's why Ian is our producer, and that's why you should donate to his Patreon, because he does all this extra work.
Fastest typing hands in the West.
What do we think of Bill Murray's role as Michelle Pfeiffer's former rebel lover?
It was fun,
superfluous.
Yeah,
trailer bait. It's
just there to be there. Didn't really serve a purpose. I mean, it was fun, and I was glad to see him, but it didn't do much.
It adds to the underbaked portion that I was talking about, because if you're going to introduce somebody along the lines of Bill Murray into Marvel, I want it to be a character that's gonna have oomph and pizzazz.
Well, they killed him off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And is he actually the Collector's brother? Because I know that was the original talk that's who the character was. And for the life of me, I'm blanking on the name of the character, but
it's not that important.
No, the Grandmaster was.
Thank you.
Well, in a sense, his brother. I mean, they were brother elders. They kind of refer to each other as brothers.
Right.
But, that's obviously Jeff Goldblum. He's already appeared. So did people think this was going to turn out to be a different Elder of the Universe?
I believe that's what they were aiming at. Yeah.
But I think it's turned out to be a turncoat who decided to work for Kang after resisting him for many years.
Yeah. Yep. Although we still also don't know. I mean, and I'm sorry, this also adds to the underbaked of it all, even though, again, I enjoy the movie for the most part, but the humanoids existing, where they necessarily come from. Are they from the quantum realm? Did they wind up in the quantum realm one way or the other? it was that the case with Bill Murray's character? Like, is he from somewhere else and wound up there, or was he born in the quantum realm? And are there other humanoids out there? That all adds to the mystery of it all that we'll either find out or never have mentioned again in the Marvel movie.
Well, and I was wondering the same thing because there's the one character, I forget the actor's name. He was in The Good Place.
Oh, yeah.
And he played the telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, when you saw these different species of people, I really thought, well, maybe they were all trapped in the quantum realm in some capacity.
William Jackson Harper is the guy's name.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of wondering the same thing. Did they develop naturally in the quantum realm, or are they all trapped there from other means and fighting for themselves to be free because they can't get out?
Yeah, that had occurred to me too, Shane, and it would account for the unusual biodiversity they seem to have.
Yeah.
Although Kang had obviously built an enormous army of those helmeted minions that who I assume looked like they were sentient beings, like that you could kill them.
Yeah.
So they had to come from somewhere.
I found Krylar, by the way, because Krylar is the character that Bill Murray played. Originally appeared for the first time and the last time in Incredible Hulk 156 from July 1972.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about a one-off character. A descendant of Kai's oldest civilization.
Kai is a microversal realm, so
well, there you go. Yep. Okay.
I think that's where Hulk's girlfriend Jarella came from.
Jarella.
You got it.
Tragic Jarella.
Yeah, because this version of Krylar was most definitely green from the
Jarella's people are green. Yep.
Yep. In fact, there it is, right there.
Nice, Ian. Man,
endlessly resourceful. This man.
Oh man, yeah. So they are pulling.
That's some Herb Trimpe art right there, baby.
They're pulling for the most part. At least like some of the characters are from Marvel lore. They're just not necessarily Micronauts or what have you. Like we would really want.
Yeah.
In the end,
I was trying to think if the Micronauts brand was licensed out to one of the other comic companies.
It is because several years ago, I think we reviewed.
IDW, I think.
We reviewed a first issue of it, but Marvel can't use the name. They call them the Microns, but Bill Mantlo created several of the characers.
Yep. Arcturus Ran, Marionette, and Bug.
Yeah, so they could have easily appeared in the movie. I don't know why they didn't, because they're really they visually they look great.
Sure.
And they would have been great characters to lead a resistance. So I was
Bug is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, Bug's fabulous. Yeah. Great personality, great look.
Oh, yeah. William Jackson Harper's character's name was Quaz, by the way, Quaz.
Okay.
Whether or not they were trying to make a subtle nod to Quasar, or whether or not this is just a throwaway character, who knows? But clearly it's not Quasar because, Quasar doesn't have mental abilities. He has the bands and all that.
Yeah.
So, but that could have easily been another character. Chose not to.
Here's the question I've been burning to ask Murd. So that first teaser scene, obviously we have a Mortis. We have the Pharaoh.
Rama Tut, right?
Rama Tut. Who was the third version of Kang? I didn't recognize him.
Just one Kang among many, as nearly as I can tell. I mean, I was expecting maybe Scarlet Centurion would be in there somewhere, but that's maybe too deep a cut because it's not only Kang from it's a Kang from the Squadron Supremes timeline, so that's really muddying the waters.
Well, the Kang that shows up in the second scene, that is actually a Kang that we've seen before. That's something Timely. I think is the name of the character.
Timely.
Victor Timely. Thank you. Yeah, that's the version of
Timely
Kang.
Comics. Yeah,
exactly.
That's the version of Kang that shows up in the second after credits scene after the whole Council of Kang, with the scene from the next season of Loki.
I got to tell you, I was impressed they went for with a Mortis and the Pharaoh. I was like, wow, like I really wasn't expecting them. Because the average viewer is like, what the hell is going on here? But I was like, it's a Mortis.
Love the voice that Majors was using. For him.
Oh my God. And that's when you firmly understand why they get somebody like Jonathan Majors to play Kang, because he embodies every single role that he is in. And that was apparent in that final scene more than anywhere else in the movie, definitely. I'll also add, Chris, just because you mentioned that, Wasp gets short shrift in this one. it's called Ant-Man and Wasp. It's not called Ant-Man and Wasps. So clearly,
Yeah.
Janet just happened to be the Wasp that got the front and center this time around because
We're allowed to have one.
it's very like it's very much Janet's story over everybody else in the entire movie. For good or for bad in the end.
And that's a great point. And I mean, again, Michelle Pfeiffer, wonderful. I really like Evangeline Lilly as his partner.
Yeah.
And I love their dynamic. She's great, like the physics. She's great in the physicality of the role.
Yeah.
And I mean, you saw a little bit of that, but I just wanted more of them doing their team up because I just think that's one of the best parts of that whole part of that franchise.
I agree.
So.
The scene when Scott is going in there to try and repair the space drive, just to resize it, and he gets caught up in the probability storm, and he get all kinds of wacky interaction between
Baskin Robbins,
his different time variants, including Baskin Robbins Scott.
Yeah.
When Hope swoops in to try to rescue him, and she starts splitting off and reduplicating like that, we don't get any of that kind of play among the different aspects of her personality or the different variants. They just automatically form a single-minded swarm of uninteresting reduplicated characters that go in there and help out Scott. It would have been a golden opportunity to give her her due in this movie.
Absolutely.
I actually, when that started to happen, I kind of expected to see different versions of her costume just show
Great
up.
point. Again, that's why
I look at
these movies.
I look at the George Perez poster, and I'm thinking, man, that would have been great to just throw like 10 of those in there, if not all of them. It would have been just a split second for each, but it would have been fun.
And for somebody who's
great idea, Shane.
492 costumes.
Right. Right.
More than any other superhero in any universe, really.
Yeah.
Who's known for changing up her costume.
Just thought that was a missed opportunity.
Agreed entirely. Yeah. And I mean, just to mention it, I mean, it is possible, and I mean, this is just hearsay, and I don't know anything behind the scenes, is that it is possible that Evangeline Lilly's own politics may have actually come into play in one form or another. But I don't know if that actually played into it, because I know that did have an effect at one point on the filming of Wakanda Forever.
All right, you can say no more. I understand where you're going.
What I will say is that building off of something that Murd said earlier, that it's funny that it took until now for Stature to actually get her due. It took 3 actresses to make that happen as well.
Yeah,
this is quite literally the 3rd actress to play the character throughout all these years.
I thought she was a delight in the role. Very charming. Yeah, I really enjoyed her performance.
I did too.
Yeah, she's great. And as an actress, I've loved her before. And Freaky in particular, she's terrific. If any of you haven't seen that yet, track it down. It's
right. That's that horror movie in which she does a Freaky Friday thing with Vince Vaughn, who is a serial killer.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah, I love that movie. It's by the same guys who made Happy Death Day.
Okay.
And they recently released a Netflix movie. I think it's like We Have a Ghost or something like that. That just came out like a week or 2 ago.
Yep. I've seen ads for that.
Yep, and it was fun.
The minute she shrunk the police car, I was like, oh, I like this character. I mean, just they established like she's like her father in many ways, but she has her own sort of politics, her own edge, her own sort of perspective, obviously. I thought they developed their dynamic very well. And again, Paul Rudd, because let's not forget him here, is so. I mean, it's part of his allure as an actor. He's so goddamn likable.
Oh, yeah.
And he's so good in that role. Like when they announced he was going to Ant-Man, I was like, oh, of course he's going to be Ant-Man. It makes perfect sense, especially as Scott Lang. And I think again he carries the role very well. He's so gifted when it comes to comedic chops and timing. I can't wait to see how they use more in future films, because I think he's so right for that character.
Yeah, I agree.
They had one missed opportunity in this film, especially with Paul Rudd. And if you know Paul Rudd's history, this would have been beautiful. If one of the Quantum Verse characters looked like Mac from Mac and Me, that would have just brought it all home. Because for any of you unaware, the decades now long joke between him and Conan O'Brien is whenever he would go on Conan, he would tell Conan that he had a clip from his upcoming movie that he'd like to play, and then he would play that scene from Mac and Me of Mac and the kid falling off the cliff.
I've seen him pull that a couple of times, and I don't even watch Conan that often.
He even pulled it on an audio podcast with
I
Conan.
heard that one. Yep. Yeah, I love Conan's podcast. Yep. Let me ask. Go ahead, Ian. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying maybe we'll get so lucky in the future that they'll throw that in the background somewhere.
So, what I was dying to ask you, brothers, is how deep in Avengers Forever do you think they're going to go with all of this?
I hope very.
Because they can obviously bring back all the dead characters, have different versions of them. What do we all think?
I really hope it's deep.
I mean, I've gone with that idea for a while now. That's the easiest way to get everybody back for one last go around.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
And they can even have multiple variants running around.
Yep.
Like
right.
If we want to get Captain Not Britain Carter back, we could get that back without any problems. We could have an Inhuman Black Bolt running around if
and a teenage Tony Stark. Anyone?
Thanks, but no thanks.
Let's skip that
one. or I mean, hell, we could get his daughter in a suit.
But wasn't
that's true?
And tell me I'm wrong because I just don't know Marvel lore as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a young Tony Stark a version of Kang, or something like that?
Well, it was as a result of Kang's meddling that he ended up in like the then present day Marvel universe. There was a whole story called The Crossing where the Tony Stark that had been the present day Tony Stark of that timeline became corrupted by some background machinations of Kang, and he ended up having to sacrifice himself to save his teammates from all the stuff that Kang had manipulated him into doing, and then he needed to be replaced by a teenaged version of himself.
Teenage version, yep.
Yeah, but then Heroes Reborn happened, and
did that also feature that weird version of the Wasp Murd where she was actually a Wasp? Yeah, all that.
This was during a brief period where somebody was trying hard to turn Avengers into Youngblood Light.
Yes, exactly.
The Wasp
it was awful. It was awful.
And came out as an insect lady.
Yeah,
that along with Teen Tony were blithely swept under the rug by Busiek. During his Avengers return, Heroes Return run.
Legend.
Thank goodness. I remember the young Tony being talked about. I do not remember Bug Wasp. Thank God.
Well, and along those lines, though, Shane, on a better side of Tony Stark / Kang, Iron Lad has to happen.
Oh, good point. Good point, Ian.
There has to be a version of Kang out there that is more on the side of good. Mm-hmm. And if we get that along the way and complete our Young Avengers, then
maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's certainly possible.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would be huge if we get that anywhere, whether it be in Loki or we get it in one of the future movies. I'm all down for that. Definitely.
Yeah, but I really hope they take a deep dive into Avengers Forever.
Well, I mean that you could have a new version of Natasha, a new version of Tony, or pluck them from. They could pluck them from certain movies that everybody knows that have watched them, but they're from that specific timeline.
Yeah.
That story is such a masterpiece. We reviewed it on the show some years back.
Sure.
It's infinite possibilities. And that the movie universe is so rich now. We've said there's over 30 movies. They could pluck from all. I mean, they kind of did that in the Avengers of Endgame storyline to some degree already.
Yeah.
So, I mean, imagine how excited the audience would be when Robert Downey Jr. reappears.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and going back to that, I mean, just like how the last Avengers movie was a way to get Gamora back in one form or another.
Right.
It could very easily be if Scarlett Johansson wants another go. There could very easily be a Black Widow running around, the universe again, or another Chris Evans in one form or another. It's the possibilities are infinite.
Yeah, isn't she in a lawsuit with Marvel right now, though?
That has since been resolved.
It's been resolved. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I kind of half wonder, and maybe I read this on some wish list of somebody's, but I think it would be fun if they eventually even threw in Chris Evans as Johnny Storm for a
Oh,
scene
that'd
or
be
something.
great.
Like just something as they're pulling
Good
this
idea.
multiverse
Again,
together
Shane.
with Kang going forward. Maybe Captain America doesn't show up, but Johnny Storm does from that universe.
I've already heard talk of Ian McKellen's Magneto possibly showing up somewhere in one form or another, whether it be in the Deadpool movie or whether it be in one of the upcoming Kang movies with the multiple universes and what have you. So anything's possible, Shane. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of fun to be had.
And if there's a council of Kangs, there better damn well be a council of Reeds.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And that we could get Ian, whatever his last name is, from those fantastic.
Sure.
Griffith, I think.
Griffith. Thank you, Ian Griffith, showing up. We can get our Jim Halpert, Reed Richards back on, and whoever's playing him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in there as well, and other versions of Reed to combat versions of Kang. It just makes perfect sense.
And that's something that I like that Marvel seems to be open to, and even DC is open to with what they're doing with different versions of Batman upcoming. Like, I just like that you're not dismissing all these actors who have played these parts or ever wanted to play these parts. They could all be these characters, even though they look different. It still makes sense in
and not only that, Shane, the audiences love it. I mean, anybody who grew up watching these various films, these various franchises, various characters. I mean, come on, are we not all excited to see Michael Keaton as Batman again? I mean, I can't wait.
I'm extremely excited. So I would love to see all these different versions from Fox movies and different. We've already got all the different Spider-Man, which was awesome. Like, I just like that we're open to this right now. While these actors are still viable, still willing, still want to. I just think it's a lot of fun.
Michael B. Jordan, Human Torch. It could certainly happen. Yeah,
why not?
God. That film.
I've never watched that film, but I'd be open to them popping up Shane, in a scene.
Okay, now listen.
Yeah,
you gotta find Shane. You gotta find just 2 hours that are just like a black hole in your life, and just put the movie on. I had the great pleasure of seeing it with Ryan and Dan in Pittsburgh, and Ryan started drinking because it was a movie theater where you could get alcohol, because it is, for me, it is one of the worst comic adaptations ever put to screen, without question.
Yeah.
But you should watch it once. What's that?
Have you ever seen the Roger Corman? Fantastic.
That one's bad. That one's bad.
Yes, but that at least has a charm to it because they were at least trying to make it look like the comic. This movie falls prey to that terrible affliction we see in comic films, and some of you have mentioned in the past where they're so afraid of the property they try to run from it.
Yeah.
And they don't just run from it; they go right off the precipice. It is a ghastly film.
It's a surprisingly good piggyback off this. And I'm sorry, Shane, go first. I'll get us in another topic. So go ahead.
What I do like about that Fantastic Four movie, even having not seen it, is that when you get to the movie The Martian, you get Sue Richards with the soldier together in The Martian.
That's true.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Oh, the Fantastic Four movie has excellent actors in it. I mean, but it's just awful, and the writing is abominable.
And we got Michael B. Jordan in the regular Marvel Cinematic Universe eventually in a complete.
He's a great actor. Yeah, but great actors still need good scripts.
Oh, absolutely.
So building off of that Fanforstic disaster, one of the things that failed that was the special effects, and I would be remiss not to bring this up as part of the conversation of this movie. There was an article that came out in Vulture this week, all about the failings of this movie, and just reading up a passage here from this article, is that some of the very VFX technicians and artists who created those sequences, who spoke with Vulture on condition of anonymity, agree that the film's CGI quality control measures were subpar. 2 of the 3 people who we interviewed admitted that shortcuts were taken and said critical resources were diverted away to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever,
Really?
Post-production around the same time as Quantumania. Several of the same effects houses worked on both films, creating competition for the most highly skilled VFX workers.
Huh.
And this movie took place almost entirely in I forget the full term for it, but the soundstage where they do the Mandalorian, like that
the volume.
The volume, thank you.
Okay.
This movie took place in the volume. And that's why things look as, kooky, crazy, beyond as they do in this. But whether I like the movie or not, I very much noticed how barren a lot of the background effects were in this.
Yeah. And
knowing that it may very well be because funds were diverted to another Marvel movie, that's not a good look.
No.
So yeah, it's disappointing in one way or in many ways.
Yeah.
How Marvel and Disney seem to be treating these VFX houses kind of as like cherry picked, and also working them to the bone, which they seem to be doing of late.
That volume. That's so impressive. If you've never watched the Mandalorian behind the scenes stuff where they show you the volume and how it works, it is just phenomenal to watch how they do it.
It is.
It's incredible.
I sped read that article you put up. I'm not going to go on a tangent because that's be for a different type of podcast, but none of what I was reading there surprises me because that's just very typical of the way corporate America deals with its workers in general.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
What I think this may say, and we've talked about potential fatigue for these things for forever now. I mean, we believe the more the merrier because hell, we want more comic stuff out there because frankly we're comic fans. But if we were to slow down the output to 2 a year instead of 3,
it's fine.
I'm okay with that if we get a better quality product.
Well, I mean, Wakanda Forever, which I think is a tremendous film.
Yeah.
Not just a great comic film. I think it's a great film.
Great.
That I think is picture perfect example of taking that approach. In that you have a movie that everything about it, the quality is so high, and there's such heart in it, and the people involved in it are clearly so emotionally invested in it. And if you're going to devote all your resources to that, then wait for the next movie.
Agreed.
And make that just as good as it can be as well. I mean, again, I don't pretend to know their scheduling, but I'm sure that I had like this whole kind of like conveyor belt attitude now about what they're pushing out there. But, in the end of the day, we want comic films, but I want great comic films.
Yeah.
So.
And no matter how much I enjoyed this film, it's not great. It's good.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Is it Winter Soldier or
no
Wakanda? No,
definitely not.
It doesn't have the gravitas of a film like that. Not that it necessarily has to, but it just doesn't.
I personally would say that I enjoyed Eternals and Thor: Love and Thunder more than I enjoyed this movie. And I know that Thor: Love and Thunder we're very torn on here on this show.
Oh yeah, I will. We part ways there, honey.
Oh yeah,
we part ways there.
Definitely.
Yeah. Wah, wah.
Well, to be fair, Ian, because you're such a great advocate, I did up my critique of Thor: Love and Thunder a little bit when we did the review show. That's a salute to you, sir. you convinced me just a little bit.
Godspeed, sir. Godspeed. But I worry a little bit, even for as much love that I have for these films and how much I did wind up having a good time while I was at the theater. I worry a little bit about the overall fatigue of it all. And
that's to be expected. That's going to have anything like this in any kind of creative endeavor. And we all have seen experience of this in different things we've enjoyed throughout our lifetime. That always happens.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually it either gets run into the ground or just, inertia kind of sets in and it's just human. Like they can't maintain that pace forever, or the audience taste starts to change for whatever reason. It's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Eventually.
Hey,
enjoy it while it's there.
Truth be told, I'm amazed we've gotten this far with the success we've had with Marvel movies.
Oh, sure.
It's an amazing accomplishment.
Well, for me, and I've said this before many times, I think a lot of that is a testament to the fact that they are overall reverent towards the source material, and where people are now experiencing. I said this before. People are now experiencing the Marvel universe for the first time, the way people experienced for the first time back in the Silver Age.
Yes.
Because it's those concepts just in a different, those great concepts in a different format now. And eventually that'll kind of run its course too.
Sure.
And then maybe it'll be something different. Right?
Two other things to point out about with the collapse. 70% of its audience dropped on week 2 for this movie. It went down to only 32 million in its second week.
And that's probably unusual for Marvel film, right, Ian? Is that
significantly so? The only one that came close to this was the drop from week 1 to week 2 for Black Widow, which also had a similar drop, but that was also Black Widow was released on Disney Plus. And
that's
that had a factor in it as well. Plus, it was also mid-pandemic, which had a major factor in it.
Also, midsummer when blockbuster follows blockbuster.
Exactly. Yeah. This one, like Cocaine Bear, almost beat this movie at the box office. Like Cocaine Bear, I think made 23 million in its first weekend, and this made 32 in its second. So I'll be looking what the next couple of weeks look like with this one, and also going back to the ending of the film. I thought about this a little bit more. As Scott is, going down the street and having his crisis moment of oh God, what's going on?
Did I kill everyone?
Yeah, I was half expecting him to realize he was in the wrong universe, and that would have been an interesting turn.
Yeah, good point.
Because especially even going back to Ant-Man 2, where that was a very much a lead in to the blip and all that with the Avengers movie. If we're talking multiverse here, if our characters are lost in the multiverse as part of it, that's just going to add to the overall intrigue of it all.
Yeah,
and it could have been a cool way to go with it, but.
I like that idea, but I kind of also thought that they would cut to something where there was a disaster that he was responsible for but didn't know it.
Okay. Yeah. Which, for all we know, that's still happening right now in the quantum realm, because they're not it's not like war is magically going to end. So anything could be happening there. We just don't know it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I like your theory a little bit better with the. Oh wait, am I even in the right universe?
Yeah, that would have been fun. I would have appreciated that. And also, this was the first of the Ant-Man films where Paul Rudd didn't have a writing credit.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he co-wrote the two before this, and this one Paul Rudd was just an actor for. He didn't actually have any, or at least that he was credited for behind the scenes for this one.
Yeah. It's kind of an unusual situation here for one of these movies, but it's a single writer credit. It's Jeff Loveness.
Wow.
Who's also known for writing for Rick and Morty.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that can make a little bit more sense why it was a little bit zany.
And it had major Rick and Morty elements, especially Holes.
Yep.
Holes was a straight Rick and Morty character.
Yeah.
I love Rick and Morty for what it is, but I was thinking that as it was rolling, it's all right, that's the most Rick and Morty element to say.
I didn't realize that. I'll have to tell my oldest boy that when I saw it with Ben. He's a huge Rick and Morty fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to mention that to him.
Yeah, and also that. Oh God, I meant to ask this, Murd. Do you know anything about the character that was just the giant eye or whatever that had the
yellow beam cannon for a head?
Yeah, is that a character that existed? Any idea?
It really looked familiar. It kind of looked like a Kirby design, or maybe we're all just thinking of Arnim Zola.
That's possible.
Is there a character in Saga like that?
I mean, there's characters in TV for heads.
That's possible. I mean,
maybe that's it.
Saga has so many wild and fantastic design for different aliens.
Yep. And looking at IMDb, by the way, Murd, they seem to believe, according to IMDb, that the third costume was the Scarlet Centurion, or at least had elements of it as part of the costume. So whether or not it was the Scarlet Centurion or not, mileage may vary, but they at least tried to incorporate some elements of the costume into that third one.
Yeah. It was a Scarlet Centurion in the same way that the Blue Raja is the Blue Raja. I think there'd be a little more scarlet in there.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
The Blue Raja.
Master of Silverware.
Man.
God, I love Hank Azaria.
Any other comments and thoughts that we have not brought up yet that we may want to be bringing up here for said movie?
It's totally nitpicky, but it just made me think about it after the movie, and I asked Ben if he noticed it. It struck me as odd that Cassie called Hank and Janet Grandma and Grandpa.
That's true.
Rather than just Hank and Janet or something. I don't know. It just
they are carrying that. They are fulfilling that role for her, though.
Yeah, they are, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. It just struck me personally as a little bit odd, but I brushed it off. And Ben said, "No, I didn't really notice." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. Just me. No big deal."
Plus, they're encouraging her own.
They are
scientific exploration and so forth.
They are, and like you said, for all intents and purposes, they're filling that role for her very
sure.
Very well.
And the size and gravitation of the quantum realm, I assume, adds to the fact that when Cassie and when there's big embiggenings happening. That it counts as actually becoming giant and making them feel like they're super duper hungry or in need of limes all of a sudden, because it's not like they're going, our size giant. They're just going bigger than the quantum realm.
Yeah.
So I'm just guessing that that's all just part of gravitation and the size of the realm itself.
Yeah. Relativity.
Yep.
I would just say in my closing is just more Kang.
Yes.
Kang. Like that's.
I kind of feel like it's time to say, like, buckle up.
Yep.
Definitely. Yep. All right. How many fracking sewers would we give this, gentleman? Murd, what do we give it?
And a quarter. Yeah, a quantum quarter.
You actually cut out on me slightly there, Murd. So you want to say it again one more time?
3 1/4.
There we go. Excellent. 3 1/4. Terrific. Shane?
I'm more of like the 3.75-ish.
Okay. Chris?
A solid 3.
I'm actually agreeing with Chris here. I'm not even going to go like 3.15 or something like that. I'm going to go solid 3. And after my second viewing, it's either going to go up or it's going to go down. I think it's probably going to go up maybe a bit, but I had a good time. I enjoyed it. And then, of course, I started thinking about it because that's life.
Yeah. Well, I know myself, and I feel like I will just enjoy it more the second, third time around. Just for what I enjoyed about this one, I'll focus in on all of that for the next viewing.
Absolutely the case. Yep. Yeah. Well, either way, I'm glad that we're in phase 5, and I'm glad that we get more Kang to come. More Kang to come, and just exactly what that's going to entail. We're just going to have to find out, and whether or not Adam Warlock is going to be important in the scheme of things as well, because we got some Guardians of the Galaxy action coming up next. Can't wait to see how that's going to go.
Yeah, I think we're going to be sad at the end of that.
I think there's going to be some death. Yes.
Yeah. And I kind of fear that Adam Warlock won't be all that important, but we'll see.
I feel like there's no way for us not to have him be important. It's just whether or not he's going to be immediately important, because you don't just introduce Adam Warlock and then just never use him again.
It just depends on how, are they going to make him just a tertiary character for them to fight? Or are they really going to lay the seeds for what Starlin did with the character?
Yeah.
Yes.
It remains to be seen.
Yeah. It could go
they might be lazy about it. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
He will be additional comedy relief. Whatever else he is, he will be that, because it's the Guardians movie.
Yeah. Let's make Murd happy, damn it. Let's get a version of that. That's absolutely what Murd wants.
What I'd like is for him to have a soul gem on his forehead, but that's...
Hell yeah.
That ship's probably already sailed.
Oh, well.
Hey, Marvel, make Murd happy. Hey, Marvel, make Murd happy.
And in so doing, make us all happy.
Amen to that. Amen to that. All right, gents. A little bit of a short one for us, but then again, it is late, and we are ready for bed. So we would like to remind
Long day it has been.
You're damn right it is, and we like to remind you all once again, Patreon.com/ComicGeekSpeak for all of that continued support of the show in any way you can give it. We really do greatly appreciate it, and we thank you so much for everything that you give in any way possible for as little as $1 a month. Patreon.com/ComicGeekSpeak. And once again, the reminder of that deadline, Mr. Murd.
End of day, Sunday, March 5th. Please get in your nominations to best of at comicgeekspeak.com.
Don't break Murd's rules. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. He's a stickler. If you do 1201, he's going to think about that very, very seriously. Okay? Just saying. And with that, Shane, over to you, sir.
First of all, be excellent to each other. Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com to send us an email. The address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com. Look us up on YouTube at youtube.com/comicgeekspeak. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Thanks to everyone who contributes to the episodes. Send in your Muddle the Murds, because I'm sure we're going to need them. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
That was indulgent.
I know. There was no other way to end it.